Hello, I'm Julia Hankins and I'm a children's wellbeing specialist. I deliver wellbeing sessions for children, yoga sessions for children, lots of different settings like schools and nurseries. And I also create and deliver trainings and resources for adults who work with children. And I mentor and train kids yoga teachers. And today I'm going to be talking all about kids yoga in schools. This is going to be an Ask Me Anything recording. So I'm going to answer some questions that have been sent to my inbox around working in schools. And if you've ever got a question that you'd like to ask me, that you'd like me to talk to in one of these episodes, then just email me at julia@juliahankins.co.uk and I'll answer your question in a video soon. So let's get straight into it. The first question I have is to Matt or not to Matt. I've had a couple of people asking me some questions around mats. So like I had one question saying, do I use mats in schools? Because the class sizes are quite big, do I always use mats? Somebody asking me what type of mats I use. Someone else asking me about transporting mats, things like that. And there's a bit of discussion in the kids yoga community about whether mats are necessary. And I personally think that they are, and I personally use yoga mats in all of my classes if they're indoors. And so if I've got the space as well, because sometimes you don't get the space. So yeah, I think it obviously depends on whether you yourself have enough kids yoga mats, also whether you have the means to transport them from place to place. Some schools do have their own mats, and some schools also will purchase their own kids yoga mats specifically for the sessions. Other schools, well, all schools will have gym mats, which are kind of thicker. Some kids yoga teachers do use those. I don't do that, and I don't like children to share mats. And this is for a safety reason, really. Kids are kind of like all over the place and like, yay. And so really, if you're expecting children to share mats, then they're likely to bump into each other and they're likely to hurt each other or themselves. I also don't like the gym mats in schools because they're thicker and squishier, and that just encourages children to kind of roll around, fall on them, flop on them. They can be quite slippy too, and also they're not great in terms of balancing and things like that. So that's what I don't like to do. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So I like to have yoga mats. So I have two different sets of yoga mats. I have full size, which are like your adult mats, and I use those with ages, well, year 3 and up. That would be age 7 and 8 upwards. I use the full size mats, generally speaking. If I'm only teaching younger children, so nursery up to that age, then I will use my half size mats, which are just like normal adult mats that I've cut up in half. Those are the mats that I choose to use, and I just think having the mats set up and in the hall or wherever you're working is a visual cue to the children that you're teaching that this is yoga, and all of the things that we're doing in this session, they remember the rules, they remember everything, because they kind of attach it to the mat. And also everybody has their own personal space. It's easier to manage behavior because you can be, remember to stay on your mat and not come onto somebody else's mat. And it just means things can be safer. It means things can be smoother and more organized. And also for the children, it's more exciting for them because it's something novel that they don't usually have in school. So it is a personal choice. You don't have to use mats. And I know some yoga teachers don't use mats, but my personal preference is yes, I use mats, and also preference is to have one mat per person, because it's just safer that way. So that's to answer that question. And I also had another question asking me how I transport my mats. So I have really big bags from IKEA that are like rectangular, kind of square rectangular bags that I can get 11 mats in, full-size mats. And so I have 3 of those bags, and I have a trolley that's like a flatbed trolley and some straps, and I put the big bags on the trolley and wheel them through, and generally that works in all of the cases that I'm at, saves my back. So that's how I transport mine around. Also have the kind of longer blue IKEA bags, and I keep my half-size mats in those, and I can fit 16 half-size mats into blue IKEA bags, you know, they're like long ones with a zip across, and I just transport those on my flatbed trolley as well. So that's how I transport my mats around. I'm lucky to have a car, so that's how I do it. Okay, another question I had was about PE kits. So somebody had messaged me saying that they had an issue where there were children that weren't joining in their kids yoga classes within a school day because they weren't wearing their PE kits and they didn't know what to do about this. This is a tricky one because schools have their own policies around PE, and the expectation usually is that children will get changed for PE. Either they come to school in their PE kit or they get changed at school. It's getting much more common now, actually since COVID, for children to come into school on their PE days already wearing their PE kit. And many schools don't allow children to join in PE if they don't have their PE kit on. Now, this is an issue because it means that some children, if they don't like doing PE, will intentionally not wear their PE kit. And it also means that some children will be excluded from the lessons because of that, and you might get them sitting at the side reading a book or something like that. I like my lessons to be as inclusive as possible, so I communicate to the staff that I'm comfortable with a child joining in without their PE kit on, as long as they're practicing safely and as long as what they're wearing is safe. So my rule is, if the child is comfortable, then I'm comfortable. And obviously it means that I will request that they take off things like ties or anything that looks like they might hurt themselves. I'll encourage them to remove those. But I'm happy for children to practice in whatever clothes they're wearing as long as they're comfortable. Because really the things that they do at playtime while they're wearing their school uniform are quite often way more active than they'll be doing in the session with me. Well, maybe not way more active, but they do a lot at playtimes that is very similar to the things that we do in the classes. So yeah, I'm happy for children to join in whether they're wearing their PE kits or not, and I communicate this to the staff, and I communicate to the staff that I would rather them join in than not join in. So that's my PE kit question. Another question I got in my email was, do children wear shoes and socks? They'd said that somebody felt uncomfortable about taking their shoes off. So I always request removal of shoes because it's a safety thing. If there's children with no shoes on and then there's some children with shoes on, then they can tread on each other and hurt each other. If they all wear shoes, and they can also tread on each other's hands and things like that, and it can cause injury, can't it? So I always request that children take their shoes off. Because they're on their mats, that's totally fine. They're not getting their feet on the floor or anything like that. And children, I don't think I've had an issue with children not wanting to take their shoes off. I give it to the children choice whether they take their socks off, though. This is something that is totally up to them in my lessons. And that is because some children are self-conscious about their feet, some people feel uncomfortable without their socks on, and you've also got the added issue of the maybe verrucas, things like that. So I tend to say, if you're comfortable with your socks on, keep them on. I use the Yoga Matters sticky mats, and so actually even with the socks on, the children are perfectly stable on the mats and they're not slipping all over the place. It does mean that we need to be super careful when they're moving around the hall, though, because quite often the hall floors are quite slippy in schools, so we have to walk when we're coming onto the mats. So yeah, so for me it's shoes off, but socks could be on if they want to. That's up to them. Also, younger children quite often struggle to get their socks back on their feet after they've taken them off, so that's why I'm quite easy breezy with socks. Obviously, if the children are outside, then we practice with our shoes on, unless it's like in a specific area that's been reserved outside, but usually we'll keep our socks and shoes on outside, just as a safety thing to help keep people's feet comfortable. So those are the 3 questions this week that were emailed to me or have been emailed to me over the past few weeks. If you're watching this when it's being published live, which is on the 17th of September, then there is also going to be a live in the Facebook group that's called School Yoga Teachers. So the live is happening at noon, so that's midday UK time, and it's going to be me and Keris Keneally, who is an approaching schools expert. She helps many activity providers get more work in schools, and so we're going to be having our live today in the Schools Yoga Teachers group, and going to be answering any questions that you may have about teaching in schools, about getting into schools. And also Keris Keneally has got a free live challenge that is coming up and starting on the 30th of September. I'm going to post the link in the box down below, and so why not sign up to that link if you would like to work in schools and to work more in schools. Then join up with Keris's new challenge that's happening on 30th of September by clicking on the link below. Hope to see you at the live in the group, and I also hope to see you on Keris's live challenge. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, just email me, julia@juliahankins.co.uk. Thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, then please like and subscribe, and make sure that you're signed up to my email list, which I'll also include in the description below.